Spring is in the air this weekend. The sun's been out bringing light and warmth, something we've been severely lacking lately. Oh, the season of romance is on the way.
Oh, yeah. And did you know that when it comes to romance, there is one town on Delmarva whose history rises above all the others? Which one, you ask? Well, how about we bring in our Throwback Thursday tour guide, Jim Duffy of Secrets of the Eastern Shore. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah. So we're heading way up the shore to
way
Cecil
up. It's a
County.
little bit out of our viewing area, but the story is going to resonate with all kinds of people in the heart of the viewing area.
Okay.
Let's start in 1913. Delaware passes a law that says you need to have a waiting period before you get married. You can get the license, but you've got to wait a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Pennsylvania had that law. New York had that law. New Jersey had that law. And what that means for everyday people is, I know this is hard to imagine, but imagine that I'm young, single, and good looking.
It's not that hard.
All right? Imagine that.
All right.
And I get drunk. And I meet someone who's also drunk. And we decide in our drunkenness that we must get married that night.
That night.
That night.
Okay.
There's only one place to go. You got to hop on a train and you have to go to Elkton, Maryland, because they don't have a waiting period, unlike Delaware.
Okay.
So in 1912, before this law, Elkton issued 200 wedding licenses. Fast forward 1935, 1936, 12,000
Oh my
wedding
God.
licenses. So they were doing about 40 weddings a day. There were 20 wedding chapels lining the main street of Elkton.
Wow.
Yeah.
So these were businesses.
They were businesses, and they had this one really interesting idiosyncrasy. I don't know why, but Maryland had a law that said if you were doing these same-day wedding operations, you could not advertise them. But businessmen and women are creative people.
Right.
And so they arranged deals with taxi drivers in Elkton. And they would meet the train station, and people would stumble off of the train, and they would lead them to a certain chapel, and they would get a kickback.
Okay.
So I put this up on my website a couple years ago, and this woman, Paulette Gagliano, I think the name, Andrea Gagliano was the name. And she writes into me and she says, my aunt was married to a guy named Harry Hedgie Woolman. And Harry Hedgie Woolman would ride a motorcycle in front of a couple, taking them to a certain chapel. And his wife would be on his shoulders, doing tricks like juggling or something like that. Yes. Now, this is a rabbit hole that I've got to jump down a little bit. And so I do, and it turns out that Harry had other tricks too. He would lead people to the chapel on his motorcycle while seated backwards, presumably with some sort of a mirror arrangement. Yeah.
You're not making this up?
No, I'm not making this up. No. All kinds of famous people got married in Elkton, like Debbie Reynolds, Martha Ray.
Oh, wow.
I forget. There's a long list of famous actors and actresses who came down and got married in Elkton. I've never been able to find out the guy's name, but one of them was a Hollywood producer. And the Hollywood producer saw Hedgie do his tricks and said, you need to come to Hollywood. Hedgie did go to Hollywood. Have you ever seen The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the old black and white one with Charles Lawton? There's a scene in there where they're in this narrow alleyway and this woman is on the gallows and they're about to hang her for some crime.
Right.
And the hunchback swoops down from the bell tower, scoops her up and puts her into some other building, and they run away and he saves her. That was not Charles Lawton. That was Hedgie from Elkton.
What do you know?
He became a big
How about that? What an interesting story.
Now wait, I told this story once in Seaford.
Yeah.
And after I got done, this woman comes up. And she's older. I'm old too. I'm not criticizing. She's older and, you know, she's kind of wobbling up to me. She's got fire in her eyes.
Oh boy.
She is just the brows, everything. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, what can I do for you? And she says, I want you to know one thing. Not everybody who got married in Elkton was drunk. And I said, you got married in Elkton, didn't you? And she said, yes, I did, and I was not drunk. And I promised her that night that I was going to make that very clear every single time I told this story from here on out.
And here you go.
And
there you
How about that? Wow.
Jim Duffy with Secrets of the Eastern Shore. As always, thank you so
Only
much.
from Jim. Thank you.